You want to know which running backs you should build your fantasy team around? We're going to give you our must-have running backs. But do we agree on all of them? Now, if you are a fantasy football fan, which of course you are, you want to know how to win and dominate your league this year, whether it's redraft, dynasty, best ball, we got you covered. Check out flockfantasy.com/endgame and you can join us on there. So much that we have to offer you. If you want to know how to play Dynasty and win, we have an 8-part video course that teaches you how to play and how to build a champion right away. We also have rankings, articles, so much more than what you can get just here. So check us out, flockfantasy.com/endgame. You join now, 30% off any subscription. First running back on our list is the first running back who was selected in the NFL draft, a guy I know we're going to talk a lot about this preseason. We've already talked a lot about, and that is Bijan Robinson, the Atlanta Falcons. So, is he a must draft in fantasy for both of us? He sure is. All right, now if you watch our live mock drafts, you already know how we feel, but Chris, let's explain for those who haven't joined us on there yet, why is Bijan going to be so desirable in fantasy?
I just I can't believe that this is the debate we're having. There's so many things you can debate in fantasy football. This guy, this situation, and we're debating a guy who checks every single box, not only as a player, but in his situation, except he hasn't played an NFL snap. This is your argument against Bijan. He hasn't played in the NFL, as if rookies never come in and are never great year one. Even last year, Dameon Pierce, he was pretty good as a rookie. I don't think he'd played an NFL snap before last year. What about Kenneth Walker? Didn't even start till week 6, and he was awesome. And last time I checked, no NFL snaps before last year. Breece Hall, before he tore his ACL, looked like he was going to be an absolute monster, and 0 NFL snaps before last year. And how about Tyler Algier, the guy Bijan is replacing? Only played 52% of NFL snaps last year, which, by the way, were the first NFL snaps he ever played in his life. Only got 47% of the running back opportunities. Still almost had 1,200 total yards and 7 touchdowns. What are we doing? Why am I still talking about Bijan Robinson? He shouldn't even be on a must-have video. It should just be obvious that he's a must-have. This is it hurts my brain. It hurts my brain.
I know we could go on, and look, we will defend him to the death if needed, because there's people who are just trying to find excuses not to draft him so high. The only thing I can think is maybe you don't want to invest a first-round pick in a guy like him. But let me just ask you this. Him versus CMC. What's the difference? It's not talent or physical ability. It's that Bijan is younger, and he doesn't have the injury history of Christian McCaffrey. Oh, and he's guaranteed probably to get more touches in that Atlanta offense than CMC is in San Francisco. So, yeah, I will say he's a must-have, and I will draft him as the first running back off the board gladly. All right, next up, a guy whose value has definitely been skyrocketing. You know this if you've been watching us this offseason. But is he a must-have still after surviving the NFL draft? Chris, you definitely think he is. You call Tony Pollard to the moon. I'm guessing you still feel that way.
Absolutely. I mean, what? It's only gotten better for Tony Pollard, honestly. Zeke is gone, and you keep hearing these reports oh, maybe Zeke to this team. Oh, maybe Zeke to this team. Or maybe Zeke nowhere because nobody wants Zeke because, like I said last year, he's complete dust. What did? They drafted Deuce Vaughn. He's 170 pounds, and he got drafted in the 7th or 6th round, 7th round, right? Almost their last pick, or maybe it was their last pick. He's going to have minimal impact. Malik Davis, okay, he's fine, but I mean, we're worried about Malik Davis, and we saw it even last year down the stretch. Tony Pollard, even with Zeke there, was a monster. I don't see why that changes this year. He'll be the focal point of this rushing attack. Now he's going to truly be the lead back. He's an explosive player. At any moment, could take a carry or a swing pass all the way to the house. For me, easily a top 10 running back this year, and probably a top 6 or 7 running back for me.
Hey, and you forgot about Ronald Jones. I mean, you never know when he could just break out. But no, seriously, the Cowboys, I get it. There's really no competition right now unless they pick up somebody late in the offseason, in which case, whoever it is, it's not really going to matter, is it? Here's the only reason I'm not going to go so far as to call Pollard a must have, because I'm close. I get it, but I worry that his stock might be a little bit too high because there are some guys who are more effective, more efficient when they don't get as many touches. And I do worry that even if Pollard does get more touches, which it looks like he's, almost destined to have, that he's really not going to produce that much more. I mean, he's averaging 5.1 yards per carry for his career, I think 5.2 last year. But that's because he was that change of pace role, right? Zeke was getting those tough yards inside. He was the one who was really getting a lot of the early down work. If Pollard becomes that guy also, maybe he gets bogged down a little bit. Maybe he's not as efficient, and maybe he does need somebody to spell him. I'm just saying I don't know that he's ready to necessarily take off and become an elite running back. So I like him. I like the value if I can get him in the third round. But I don't know that I feel like I have to have him in every single draft. Let's stay in the state of Texas and talk about the guy who also survived the NFL draft as Dameon Pierce in Houston with a rookie quarterback there now. I wonder if that helps him or hurts him in terms of fantasy. So what's the call? All right, Chris, you're saying you don't have to have Pierce. What are you worried about here?
It's not that I'm worried about anything. It's just he's not one of these guys that I feel like I have to have. Number one, we know he's not going to catch many passes at all. It's just not what he does. And for me, it's hard for me to have a guy as a must-have running back who doesn't catch a lot of passes unless he's one of these guys who we know can, score a bazillion touchdowns and rack up a ton of yards. And like Houston's offense will probably be better than last year because it can't really be worse. But is it going to be good enough for Dameon Pierce to get double-digit touchdowns, go well over 1,000 yards? I'm not sure about that. Plus, they might actually throw the ball more now because they have a quarterback and they have some weapons at receiver. So I like Dameon Pierce. I'll draft him when he falls to me and I need a running back. I have no problem with him. I'm not down on him or anything. He's just not a guy I feel like I have to get in as many drafts as I can.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you why I like Pierce. I'm grabbing him so much in these early drafts, early mocks that we do, best ball, wherever I can. You're getting a workhorse back who, unlike a guy like Pollard who's going probably a third round in most drafts, he's fallen to the fifth or sixth round. I mean, I'll take that every time, and I am maybe a little overly optimistic that this Texans offense will improve. I was a little too optimistic last year, but again, a new coaching staff, new offense, new quarterback, which will definitely make a difference. I'm a Stroud guy. I believe in him. He's not going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jackson Smith and Jigba to throw the ball to. He's going to have to dump it off sometimes to Dameon Pierce, and I think he will. I think we see Pierce's receptions go up. That was one of his strengths coming out of college is he's a good pass catcher. He just wasn't used that way for whatever reason last year. And so I think Pierce will see more touches this year. He's a great value, and I like him as a really solid RB2. Next up, we've got to talk about Cam Akers. I mean, do we even have to ask, who is it among us that is higher on Cam Akers? All right. So, Chris, you're not buying into this that Cam Akers is going to still be the guy there, break through, have a career year once and for all?
Well, actually, I am buying into that because I do think he'll be the guy there, and he probably will have a career year because, I mean, let's be real. What's a career year for Cam Akers at this point? It's basically playing the entire season. But again, kind of like Dameon Pierce, I like Cam Akers a lot. When he's there and I need a running back, I will gladly draft Cam Akers. But I do worry a little bit, this offense, they're still, even last year when they weren't very good, they're still one of the pass-heaviest offenses when they got inside the red zone. It sounds like Stafford's healthy. Sounds like he's in shape. I think they're going to try to just run the same old pass-heavy offense that they always run with Stafford, with McVay. So I do like Akers. I think Akers will have a lot of nice games. I think he's like a high upside RB2. But kind of like Dameon Pierce, not a guy I feel like I have to get every time. But if I can get him, I will. But if I don't, that's okay too.
Totally makes sense. I get it. There's concerns. I mean, the Rams, pretty much everything went wrong for them that could possibly go wrong last year, right? I mean, that's as big of a Super Bowl hangover as you can get. But with Akers specifically, as bad as it was early in the season, and everyone's like, he's done, right? That Achilles, he's never going to get his explosiveness back. He's toast. not so fast. The last 4 games of the season, we saw finally what he's capable of when they actually were able to commit to the run because, of course, well, Cooper Kupp is out and Stafford was out, and so they had to run the ball, and then maybe they kind of figured out, hey, we should give this Akers guy the ball more. And I think that will carry over to some extent. They don't want, Matt Stafford, as old as he is, to be out there having to sling the ball 40 plus times a game. That defense is not what it was the year they won the Super Bowl. They don't want to have to expose the defense more than they have to. So I think Akers is going to become a little bit more important in this offense. And we saw average 5.5 yards per carry over the last 4 games. This offensive line has to get better because it was so bad last year. Whatever they've done this offseason, it should be better. I think Akers is a guy who's going to go undervalued again. A lot of new pieces in Baltimore. One piece that's not new is Lamar Jackson staying in place. Does that mean J.K. Dobbins is going to have a better season? Or is it going to hold him back when Lamar's throwing for 6,000 yards? All right, Chris, you're saying Dobbins must have. That means you probably think they're going to stick with the running game quite a bit.
I don't know if it means they're going to stick with the running game quite a bit or not. I mean, they're certainly going to throw more. They've showed us their cards. They've shown us their hand. They're going to throw the ball more. But I don't think that's necessarily bad for J.K. Dobbins because we saw it kind of like Cam Akers last year. At the end of the season, he finally looked, I wouldn't say he was 100%. He definitely was not 100%. But that straight line speed was there. He had juice. He had burst. Now, second year off the ACL, we talk about this all the time. And I know people want to draft Breece Hall this year and people can't wait to draft Javonte, but we talk about it all the time. Second year ACL is when these guys bounce back. And a lot of times they're better than they were before. So now, a guy who's already got that straight line speed, already has that burst, the ability to hit big plays, and now he gets that lateral quickness back that he had, coming out of college. I think we see, just like Cam Akers, I think we see the best J.K. Dobbins we've ever seen, but he's going to be in one of these offenses now where I think this offense is going to be one of the top offenses in the league. It's going to surprise a lot of people because people are just used to this being like a run-heavy, boring offense. I think it's going to be an explosive offense. He's going to have tons of opportunities to score. No, he's not going to catch a ton of passes, but I do think he has double-digit touchdown upside. I think he can go well over 1,000 yards rushing, and he's not a guy you have to draft very early. So for me, J.K. Dobbins, I think this is a huge year for J.K. Dobbins, and he is a must-have for me.
I'm so close. I'll just tell you, I was really struggling with this one. I'm very close to calling him a must-have, but honestly, at this point, guys we talked about like Pierce, Akers, Dobbins, they're all going right there in the same range. Like, you can't have them all. So I guess I'm hanging my hat more on the first two. Dobbins is kind of next for me. The only reason is, again, I know maybe it sounds hypocritical that I'm on Akers and not Dobbins, right? It's not even the injury history or anything like that. It's like you said, I feel like while Akers is going to be more of a focal point of the offense there for the Rams, Dobbins, yeah, he'll be the guy in Baltimore, but do I feel like he's going to be a workhorse? I don't think so. I think that they're still going to mix in guys like Gus Edwards or whoever they roll out. They like to bring all these veterans off the street. I think that he's also going to be a little bit limited as a pass catcher, which you mentioned, which is why I was not quite as high on Dobbins coming out of college as some of these other running backs in that class. And they are going to pass the ball more. Greg Roman is gone. Dobbins will be solid. I like getting him as a late RB2, but I'm just a little higher on those first two guys. Those guys are must-haves at the running back position. But you want to know our top 24 rankings? We break it down for you right here with our tiered rankings.